Next, I want to bring up Ron Jacobsma, who is the manager and I guess it's the director and manager of Friant Water District, water users. Ron, thank you.
Steve, I no longer have an urge to kick you. I renamed my dog Steve. So makes it better for everybody except the dog. Probably some of you are wondering, why is Friant getting so engaged in the Delta issues? We've got, as you know, about 1 million acres on the east side, 15,000 farmers, deliver on average about 1,200,000 acre-feet of water. But, as a lot of people forget, and Steve knows very well, we are dependent upon delivery of Northern California water to the exchange contractors. And without that, the exchange contractors have a right to call on the historical water supplies out of Friant. Last year, first time, history of the project, over 50 years, almost 60 years, there was a potential call on Friant, 200,000 acre-feet. Well, I think we only had 400,000 acre-feet in the watershed at the time. Fortunately, we didn't have much by way of river restoration flows. So we were looking at less than a 15% supply on the Friant side as well. And some of our districts had no groundwater availability in permanent crops, such as citrus in the foothills. So we were very, very concerned, and that grabbed the attention of a lot of our landowners that before knew there was a problem over here, had a lot of empathy for it, but didn't quite get the connection how we were next in line. So what we're worried about now is that this cancer is spreading. And we could be in a situation again where we have maybe 200,000 acre-feet to have to supply to the exchange contractors. This is the first year of our restoration flows. Not a program we are enamored over, but it was a business decision by our folks' part, so we could lock in the amount of water that we would have to give up to try and reestablish a fishery. That could be 200,000 acre-feet. Cross Valley supplies come from Northern California, kind of last in line in the state and federal system. That's another 100,000 acre-feet. So that's a 500,000 acre-feet of water that the east side Friant Division service area could be impacted by. We support a lot of the short-term fixes that were mentioned here today, and we are for creativity. Part of our problem is even our partners sometimes in river restoration or other environmental ventures are not always as cooperative. They obviously don't want to err on the side of extinction of any critter, and I'm not supposing we ever should. But at the same time, it seems like we are really exceeding the bounds of reasonableness and not having much results on speculative science in some instances, when we know we have demonstrated damages as a result of those policies or implementations of programs. And that's where, again, I would urge the agencies to utilize as much flexibility as possible. That is a big chunk of water, 1 million acre-feet for CDP agriculture. I know we're tight on time today. I'd love to talk about Temperance Flat tomorrow at the forum. I actually get 10 minutes instead of 5, so we'll focus on that. And Senator, I know you've been very interested in the bond and that aspect of it. I'd be happy to talk with you or anybody else afterward. I can tell you this, Temperance Flat is a wonderful project. I never thought we'd get the state to even potentially come up with half the funding on that, so I think that's fantastic. But Temperance Flat doesn't work for agriculture without a Delta fix. It has to be an integrated project. It's expensive, and it has to be able to supply wet year water to get the environmental break in the Delta in order for that project to work. And we'll have more on that tomorrow. But I thank you for your time. I thank you, Congressman, for your efforts. You've been involved with us on a lot of contentious issues, took a lot of arrows for us, and we appreciate your efforts. This truly, in my opinion, is a bipartisan effort, and I think all of our fellow congressmen are doing a great job in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate you saying that. When I got elected to the legislature, I went to this next gentleman and said, I need someone who's going to be my advisor on water issues because they are so complex. And for the last 14 years, he has fulfilled that role in a very great way. His name is Ken Robbins. He's the general counsel of the Merced Irrigation District, and he is one of the state's experts on water. And Ken, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Dennis. I guess I'm here to talk a little bit about what's happening on east side tributaries, because although many of you on the west side are seeing water cutbacks, so are we on the east side. Exchequer, which is Merced Irrigation District's storage project. It's a 1 million acre foot project. It's got about 400,000 acre feet in it right now as we speak, but half of that is reserved for fishery and in-stream flows. Last year we had grower curtailments, and so we're not delivering full supplies either, even though at this point we're not subject to the biological opinions. But as Tim is going to tell you shortly, we probably will be, at least indirectly. We are in the process of being relicensed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. That means is, because we have a hydropower plant at the dam, the feds are issuing us a license, and they get to tell us pretty much how that operates. And the process of being relicensed means there is a very long, attenuated public process. We have just completed a section of that where we have just decided what kinds of studies we're going to do. We have had agencies and NGOs telling us, for instance, that we need to study the impacts that Merced Irrigation District is having on orcas, killer whales, because of the declines of salmon. Fortunately, that scope of those studies have been significantly attenuated, and we think we're going to be moving forward. But we still have things like the 401 Clean Water Certification, Endangered Species Act, CEQA, and NEPA to go through. So we will also be facing biological opinions having to do with endangered species, et cetera, that will impact our projects and our water supply as well. So both the Merced and the Tuolumne, as well as the Stanislaus, will be right in the middle of this mix as we're moving forward, and hopefully we're all going to be hanging together in this process, because there are some things coming down at the state board and under the federal regulatory processes that are going to affect us all. I did want to correct one thing that Tom said earlier. Tom said that Dennis and Jim have been tirelessly working on our behalf, and they do everything they can until they're told that they can't. Well, I want to tell you about a little project that Merced is trying to do, which is to raise the spillway gate at Exchequer. We want to raise it 10 feet. It has a new water supply of 70,000 acre feet, but we've been told we can't do that. There's some regulatory and legal issues involved in that project. Now, 70,000 feet is not a lot for the valley, but it's a big start on the San Joaquin. It doesn't affect anybody downstream because it only happens in really wet years, but it produces hydroelectric power and new water. We don't need any state or federal money to do it either. We'll do it ourselves with local dollars. But when we were told we couldn't do it, Dennis, together with George Radanovich, with Jim's support, and Devins and others in the congressional delegation, but led by Dennis, has essentially said, you know what, of course we're going to give that a shot. So we're introducing activities and potentially legislation and other things that are designed to get beyond, no, you can't do it, but get to, yes, we can. Thanks, Dennis and Jim. I appreciate your efforts a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. And it's okay to give these guys applause. They're working hard. This is no joke about they're working on weekends. You know, there's an awful lot of disgust with government these days because people don't feel it's working for them. But you also have to know those folks who are working on your behalf, they're doing a good job, they're working the weekends that people never get to see. And I will tell you, these local water managers in particular are folks that I know are working on weekends because I'm talking to them. 2 years ago, maybe it wasn't quite that long ago, I remember I was in Washington at midnight talking to folks in California at 9 o'clock. They were all trying to figure this stuff out. And it had to do with the Friant settlement and concerns that Steve Chester's group had and the other folks on how that was going. Now, none of us liked that settlement. This was a court-imposed settlement, but we were trying to make it work the best way we could. And working on these things late at night, early in the morning, round the clock, for days on end, is stuff that happens to be out of public sight, but it happens on a regular basis. It's the rule rather than the exception, but these fellows are working hard. The last fellow I want to bring up today, well, actually there's two more. Tim O'Loughlin, Oakdale Irrigation.